All right, we're back. We're going to be talking about workflows today. So, the big thing with the workflow that we're really trying to target is how do these workflows look different? How do they actually work differently in the DAW? So, we're going to be in Pro Tools for the most part. We're going to look at a song and talk about the workflow from the songwriting to the actual recording. We'll talk a little bit about what that editing workflow looks like, into mixing, and then finally mastering. So what you should see is you're going to see the sessions actually grow over time and then be more consolidated, eventually down to a 2-track in that final master stage. So let's take a look. We're looking at a song called Crazy Feeling by Daniel Park. I had the opportunity of writing this song with him and producing it. This was actually one of the very few songs on the album that I actually had a lot less to do with the writing part, and I did a lot more of the production. Let's take a look. So this particular setup for the songwriting element that we're looking at is very simple. When it comes to songwriting, we're opening up a new session a lot of times, and we're just going to have a basic click track, and we're going to work through some basic things that we need to get the songwriting flow going. For this idea, we knew we were going to be working with a band, and so we actually went from the songwriting session and took that with the band into a rehearsal, and then took that band to the studio. And so that's how this process works. So we'll take a listen. Basically, you're going to see the click track guide is rolling. We have an acoustic guitar guide and a vocal guide. And the goal is to make them as accurate as possible. For this, the artist literally just played the acoustic with the vocal at the same time, which is not normally how we'd like to do things when we do final cuts in the recording. So that's why this is a demo. So let's take a listen.
You and me and a Christmas tree that gives me that crazy feeling that I'm loving, baby. Drinks, laughs, all the photographs that make me wonder, do we look younger? Simply wonderful feelings. Da 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 da. I can't hide that I'm so excited. This time of year makes me feel warm inside. I got a tingling feeling on my body for this crazy feeling.
Okay, so let's take a look at that. The idea here is that the concept with this one is this is the demo session. So this is the Crazy Feeling demo session. So when you're looking at your questions that go along with this for the immersion projects, this is the session that focuses on the songwriting. This is the Crazy Feeling demo session. Some elements that make it productive for the writing process is it doesn't really carry with it a lot of plugins. So there's no DSP load really happening with the computer. It kind of gets built from the ground up, so we can add the tracks that we need as we go. It operates to click, meaning it's using the metronome, and we have a light verb and chorus in it, but it really frees it up so instead of focusing on anything about the mix or edit, we really focus on what the content that we're putting in, what we're creating, and if it gets a little sloppy, we can clean it up from here. This session was also, just to kind of keep track of what's happening, this session was recorded. Oh, actually, surprisingly, this session was recorded at 88.2, so this one is a high-res demo. Normally, I just do a 44.1. I don't actually know why that one would have been done at high-res, but there it is. And so we're going to close this one and go take a look at the next phase in the workflow here. So that was the demo. And now we're going to take a look at the drum and bass recording session. What you should see is a lot of tracks. And I might have to reroute their outputs real quickly just to make them work. Oh, they might work. So here's our session, here's our track listing. I'm going to make adjustments to them as we go. So notice this is a recording session. So in the recording session, the most important part is obviously capturing the tracks. You see there's the click, there's the guide that we had just built, and then here's all the new content. It's drums and bass, and the reverb and chorus are still there. So notice these are just flat-lined levels. They're not mixed at all. There's no adjustments. There's no plugins. There's no reverbs. There's no sends from there for these guys. There's a little bit of panning, and I muted some things that maybe weren't important at the time. You're going to see why. But you can see, if we look at the track count here, I mean, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 tracks of drums and 6 tracks of bass. And these are not layers, these are single performances. So this is a single performance. So like this is the drum and bass tracking session for Crazy Feeling. We later on added piano. So there was a piano session for that. But if you look at these, the part of the beautiful part about these is the drums and the bass are grouped. They're all one pass. In the bass land, we have a DI pedal, we have 3 mics, and then we have a compressor. We have the LA3A, the post compressor. So we can actually isolate and listen to those. But the other thing that's really cool about this is we did a bunch of takes. And if we zoom out, apparently this was the take that we liked. I have to keep this one in mind. This is O2. But if I look at it, I have other takes. So I could see other options if I wanted to hear, what other options were there? We chose O2. And also I'd mentioned this because this is all analog. In the studio I had recorded the kick on just the distressor, and I had recorded the kick, or the overall rooms. That's what I did. I just snare on the 1176. So that's just 1176 processing the snare. So let's listen to just a couple of these pieces real quick. Actually, I'm going to open up just that 1176 snare. Take a listen to that for a second here from the beginning. And let's go take a listen to the bass on the LA3A print. So it's running through, again, that solid state vintage compressor. All right, I'm going to open up all of it. I'm going to have the mix window kind of adjusted as we go because there's a lot to it. In this session, though, the only things that are really playing on the drums are the snare. But we will use the overheads to get some tonal balance. And notice I balanced the bass a little bit. Let's take a listen.
You and me and a Christmas tree that gives me that crazy feeling that I'm loving, baby. Dream.
All right, so this is just the drum and bass tracking. So notice we still actually have the acoustic guitar and the scratch vocal with that click, all that original stuff we still have. We don't have any levels like when we're looking at this. We didn't put any levels on a lot of this stuff, so we didn't level out any of this stuff. We haven't balanced any of this. We have all these tracks here, but we didn't put anything on these 2 tracks. So now what we have to do is let's go close this. We actually have to go look at the tracking sessions because that was drum and bass tracking. And the way we set this up, because we were in a large format studios, each day we had a focus. We were doing 12 songs, and each day was a focus. So the first 2 days were drums and bass. And the next days we would go to piano, a day of piano, and we'd get every song done that needed piano. And then acoustic guitar, every song that needed acoustic guitar. So what I'm going to open up is the acoustic guitar session. So this is the acoustic guitar session straight from the studio. And so the new parts in this one are going to be the acoustic lanes. And so again, this is the recording process. And the recording process, a lot of times, it helps to just kind of focus these sessions so that as we're stacking them in, we're adding these parts, we're focusing on the most important pieces. And looking at this, this is in the acoustic guitar folder. Apparently we decided not to do the acoustic on this day. So actually what you're looking at is the acoustic guide is still there, the vocal guide is muted, and now we have new vocals. So this is actually the vocal session day. We'll have to go back and find the acoustic guitar one. So let's take a listen to this. And you can see this is how the vocals are set up. There's a bunch of tracks, but that's because we had a bunch of tracks in all the other sessions, so we copy-pasted the tracks so we could use them. We realized that we really only needed the one for this kind of a chill song. Let's take a look at it.
Cause you and me and our Christmas tree gives me that crazy feeling that I'm loving, baby. Drinks and laughs and all the photographs that make me wonder, do we look younger? Simply wonderful feelings.
So the acoustic guitar is in this one, but it's drastically reduced in volume. And the biggest reason why is because the purpose of the scratch was to give everybody a guide, right? We did these guide tracks to give the band a guide. But these are final drums and these are final bass. And what that means is their timing is going to be impeccable. Like that, these guys set the timing now. What we begin to do after those timing mechanisms are there is, although we have the click, we typically won't be recording the vocalist to click anymore. The vocalist should be listening to the band. And that's what's happening here. But the problem is that if we go back and have the vocalist listen to the band, plus listen to the acoustic guitar guide, it throws the timing off. So it's kind of there just to hear a little bit of the notation if we needed it, but it's really not in because we don't want it to distract the vocalist from having, the timing line up with the drums and the bass. And that's what you see there. As we go, I'm going to have to go find this acoustic guitar tracking day, because on the acoustic guitar tracking day, it did not exist there. So let's take a look at which day it did exist. It says AC. Oh, that's why it says vocal and AC guitar tracking day 3. Let's find vocal and AC guitar tracking day 2. Oh, I think when I'm looking at this, I think what happened was for some reason that particular day we just didn't do it. So we must have shifted it to a different day. Let's see what we find. Interesting. So I don't see it, but I know that, and I have an electric guitar session. In the electric guitar session, I think by then we had the acoustic guitars in, but I don't see the acoustic guitar session. Let's check this out. So what you're seeing here is a little different. For the electric guitar session, I just dumped a stem, meaning I printed a bounce from the mix to add electric guitars in. So I had a real simplified I didn't have to deal with all the tracks that were there. Let's take a look. All right. Okay. I'm so sorry. So I forgot about that. So what we did is we actually dumped the acoustic guitar and we put in piano instead. So let's take a look. Here's the electric guitar print. So the beauty of this is when you do it this way, I'm doing a lot of playlist options here, and so I can actually kind of pick and choose through the electric guitar. This is me on guitar, so I kind of know what I want, but you could hear, like, as I kind of got through it, I'm going to cycle through these so you can hear what I did. So that's how we ended up getting to where we are here. So let's get rid of this one. Let's close this session. And let's go look for that piano session. So we had a wonderful piano player for this set of sessions. Let's see if we can find that one, though. Where are we? Oh, there we go. So we're looking for piano. Totally forgot about that. We added an extra piano day. There it is. Sorry. So that was tucked away in a different session. That was actually, we had done another string of sessions that week, and for some reason, it just ended up in a different folder. So this one's actually going to highlight the piano. So the piano setup was a little different. We did a few different piano setups. You can see I have 6 mics. I did a combination of an XY at the crook of the piano on the side and a couple going over the top. I think all of this was closed, and we might have put moving blankets on top to kind of get it to darken. Let's take a listen to just the piano. We'll know in 2 shakes. Okay, no, scratch that. So this is all open lid. Yeah, I must have darkened it in the post.
That make me wonder
So you can see the benefit here is we're really listening to the piano. So the piano's a lot louder. It's got a more focus. But at this point in time, we're about to go to the mix, and you can see there's a lot of tracks right in this session, and so all this stuff's going to get reduced. What we do and don't need, we have a couple extra mics that we're really not that aren't important to this particular session. But the reason why that oftentimes we're using a lot of different mic variants in these kinds of sessions is if I'm setting up for a day of piano and I have 5 songs piano is going to be on, I really want a bunch of different positions because I don't want the piano to be the same on every song. I want to be super artistic about it. I want to make sure that I'm providing, that kind of information there. And I think if I saw this last time, 23, out 23, I think there's an extra bus somewhere. But this is the mix session, and it actually doesn't look as clean as the one that I showed earlier today. Let me see if I can find the one. The one that I had earlier today just had a better overall looking. This one isn't the color coded final version, it looks like. Normally when we go to mix, we tend to color code and really provide just a great overall look. This is the simplified final mix. And it's only got, it only has a handful of tracks. They're all summed down. And when I say summed, what we do is we print them or bounce them out or print them through another device and bring them back in as a final form. So final form here is snares in stereo using a combination of the mics, basses in mono using a combination of its mics, pianos in stereo using the combination of mics, electric guitar is also using a combination of mics, but it's in stereo and the vocals are in mono. And then the final result going into that, basically with just minimal plugins, ends up looking like this. I'm sorry, this is actually not the right session. This was this one. Sorry, I changed the plugins for. Okay, there we go. So this one is the final, and in this final, we're using a select handful of plugins. The workflow is different because the workflow here is we're not really sitting around working and focusing on a whole bunch in here until we get to automation. We really are looking at the sounds, so we have a whole series of compressors, but there's not a whole lot. I mean, it's actually pretty simple. I did have to call out noise reduction on one of these tracks. Which one is it? Oh, it's the piano. The piano got a little noisy because I was using vintage mics running through some vintage equipment, and it just had a little bit of crispiness to it, So we're using a myriad of plugins to really get these sounds. We have some reverbs that are our main reverbs at the tail end of this that we're using for the vocals and the snare. And let's take a listen from the top.
Our Christmas tree gives me that crazy feeling that I'm loving, baby. Drinks and laughs, and all the photographs that make me wonder, do we look younger? Simply wonderful feelings. Da 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 da. I can't hide that I'm so excited. This time of year makes me feel warm inside. I got the tingling feeling in my body for this crazy feeling.
So you can see kind of how this thing kind of merged, and we look at a different process. And in the mix, some of the benefits that we have is we're using these color coded markers, and so we're actually able to like recall and call up through different parts of the session using memory locations. And so, like, here's our memory location palette. So we can jump between these sections. Let's go to the verse. Let's go to the pre. Oh, I want to hear a break. We want to be able to do that. So a lot of times we color code those. We get those markers up and running. The big focus here, though, is the mix. And so you see, got a lot of verbs. We got a lot of automation. Not a lot, just a little bit of automation in some spots, and just kind of finessing a lot of the audio. There may be some automation to some of the volumes as well. I actually don't see any there. I think either I had some or I printed some. Oh yeah, so like the electric guitar, to make the electric guitar sound this way, like watch, it's just a couple of flares, but they don't all have to be the same volume. So listen how we do this.
Inside, I got that tingling. I got that tingling feeling in my body. For this crazy feeling, simply wonderful feelings.
So a couple things that you'll find as you're kind of working through these in these stages is like sometimes the volume, like volume up, volume down, it has a lot to do with timing and tuning. And so like if things aren't locked in a certain way, we kind of either have to showcase them or hide them. And so there's just issues that you see that kind of come up there. Like the end of this just felt cool to play, but it was not really that great to hear. So like there's just things where like it's like, yeah, we need more of that, less of this. And that happens all in the mix process. And then once that mix process is done, we export out to final 2-track, and that gets us to our mastering stage. And so I'm going to open that mastering session up real quickly. Let me get Pro Tools closed. So we remove any of the sample rate issues, and let's get back to that file for mastering. And what you're going to see is Wavelab Pro, but you're going to see a mastering, what we call a mastering montage. And that's the combination of all the songs from the album in one place, even though they're processed differently. They have different processing taking place. But as we look at this, you can see, if we kind of scroll through this, where is it? Oh, hold on, it's still loading. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to scroll. It's somewhere just above here. This is obviously a Christmas album, and that's why you're seeing it. All right, there it is. So here's our 2-track for Crazy Feeling, and it has processing on board. Like there's processing taking place specifically for this track with this track. So we could open those up and take a look. So we have a J37. So we're doing some tape. We have the Wavelab Master Rig, which is its own like internal routing of stuff. So it's running an EQ, compression. This is a multi-band. It's got an imager. This imager is actually really great. There's just some really cool capabilities with it in terms of frequencies. You can just choose which frequencies you want to image, wider or tighter. There's a limiter and then a final EQ. And then this one had a de-esser to make it a little bit smoother up top. One of the problems that we run into sometimes when we go to mastering is it might be a little too bright up top. It already had a de-esser on the vocals, but then we ended up here. And so this was that final stage.
And our Christmas tree gives me that crazy feeling that I'm loving, baby. Drinks and laughs and all the photographs that make me wonder, do we look younger? Simply wonderful feelings. Da 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 da. I can't hide that.
All right, so I'm going to mute this and just kind of let it roll, but just kind of explain. So the difference in the workflow here. Oh, I guess obviously if I mute it, it doesn't get rid of that. Really get rid of that issue. With the oh yeah, here's what I'll do. I'll unmute it. I'll mute it here. Mute it on my side. The benefit of using mastering software in a mastering process is the mastering workflow looks completely different. The mastering workflow allows us to tailor to the specific two-track final outcome. So we don't deal with levels between instruments. We deal with the overall level, the overall output. Up here we're watching the LUFS, the loudness units overall. You can see kind of where the averages are. The true peak value where the average there is. You can see this is showing instantaneous, momentary, the overall, the integrated, the overall sustained. And then over here, the spectrograph really gives us some amazing features. It really shows us what's happening with the low end, what's happening with the mids and the highs. And we kind of are able to keep an eye on everything going on there. And then we could see that same feature here in the spectrometer, and then there's a live spectrometer, which is really cool. It kind of just looks like like it's an echo graph or something like that, but it's showing us these features long term over time where that buildup is. And so we're trying to keep with our meters, we're trying to keep an eye on everything that we need to maintain that beautiful sonic output. But that's like one of the massive benefits we get with the mastering process. And so you kind of saw how that song went from the songwriting stage to the recording stage, and the recording stage had phases: recording drums, recording bass, recording vocals and piano and electric guitars, and then it went to a final mix stage, and then here we are at the final mastering stage. And the final mastering stage is going to get us to our output. One of the other huge benefits that I absolutely love about the mastering phase is that in the mastering stage, we get to call up some presets on the output, and one of my favorites, which I don't know if that's right. One of my favorites is this, is the Wave plus AAC plus 44.1, and those are different Wave AAC combinations plus MP3, and so you do it in one shot, and it processes, and you get that output of all of the various formats that you want. You could do them all at once. You can process them all at once, and they're coming straight from the mastering console. So everything comes out pristine. You're not having to go through iTunes and doing compression on some other third party. You're literally going to do compression off the mastering side, and so that's a beautiful piece. The other beautiful piece is, and I don't know if I have it in this clip, but I do have it in one of my other clips for mastering. Let's see. If we go look at the metadata. Oh yeah, so you can see, so check this out. So in the metadata, some of those files that you just saw on that output option carry metadata. Not all of them do. So the waves typically carry a limited amount, but the AACs, the things that go to Apple, the things that go to Spotify, typically have a lot. And so the metadata information that we can use here is really cool because, I don't know if I can zoom in on it effectively or not. Oh yeah, because it'll tell us everything. It's going to tell us who the artist is, and this prints on the file, the copyright ownership, who the engineers were, ISRC codes, a myriad of those things. Plus, when you load these up into things like iTunes, I don't know if I have it in this one. No, I don't. Hold on. Oh, maybe I do. Hold on. You also get to apply in the metadata the actual album artwork, and so you could have always done that in iTunes. It's been around forever that way, but you have to go manually do it after it's downloaded, and so this way you actually ensure that the artwork actually stays with the album, so that it actually gets put on that way with the metadata in place as you export those files on the out. And so again, there's that just beautiful work done by the mastering software that really gets us to that process, and away we go. And that's it. I mean, I know that was a long one, but that's it. That's it's a very exciting field to be in. It's a very exciting thing to work with, but that's the workflow.